whether it is the retail investor, whether it is the foreign institutional investor, whether it is corporates themselves who want to come in and raise capital. Unless there is trust, the entire edifice will fail. Trust is the very foundation on which the superstructure has to be built. And therefore, every step of ours is really predicated on the assumption that unless trust in the system is protected, we will be failing in our core objective, because nobody wants to enter a house that is even possible to collapse. In this context of building trust, the single most important tool for SEBI is transparency. We are a disclosure-based regime. That is again at the base of almost everything we do, because our belief is that the business should be free to do what it does, but in order to ensure that there is trust, what is required is 100% transparency in what is happening. So growth, development is based on trust, and trust is based on transparency, is the single most important mantra for SEBI. And going forward, this is something that we will continue to reinforce at every single stage. A lot of feedback that we get is that regulatory stability is very important. To be honest, it really confuses me. Because on the one hand, the world is moving so fast. All of your businesses are changing so rapidly. The markets are evolving so speedily. And I assume that you expect the regulator to keep pace with you. Then how can we say that we will come out with a regulation once in a year? That format, expect to keep pace with you. So it confuses me, but I must say that given our process of consultation, we are always today discussing that what is it that you would like? At the end of the day, if the world around us is moving at 100 kilometers per hour, do you really want the regulator to be moving at 10 kilometers per hour? I don't think so. So if the world around us is changing at that pace, and the need of every entity to keep pace, whether it is with their customers or with their suppliers or with the globe, at the end of the day, we are also one similar stakeholder for you, and our expectation is that just as the market, just as your businesses are evolving so rapidly, the markets are also evolving as rapidly, and they should keep pace, and therefore our earnest request to you is to keep pace with us. However, what stability are we happy and willing to assure? Not in the nitty-gritty, not in the operational aspects, but in terms of the approach. You need and deserve the right to know what is the regulatory approach, what is the thinking that you must build into your models, what is the thinking that you must be prepared for over the next few years. In a very simple way, I would define our approach through this picture. I'll start with the green side. Everything that a corporate does, what you do is none of our business. It is your business. We have no right whatsoever to say anything about what you do. The yellow piece is about how you do it. So as a regulator, in order to ensure that there is trust in the system, how you do something, we will have something to say about it. For instance, we will say, go to your AGM, take an approval, special resolution, majority of minority. All of these things is how you do what you do. The orange one is about disclosure. What you will disclose about what you do, we will have a lot to say about it. Because as I said, our whole regime, our whole regulatory framework is a disclosure-based regime. Do what you believe is right. Do it in a manner and a way that has been suggested. Disclose everything about it. Which of course brings us to the red lemon. That is, if somebody does cross the line, then not only do we have a lot to say about it, we have a lot to do about it as well. This is our fundamental regulatory approach. I would just like to illustrate by way of an example to manifest what I mean by this principle. So a lot has been said about the pricing of the IPOs of the new tech companies. What is SEBI's view on that? Our view is simple, starting from the green. At what price you choose to do your IPO is your business. We have no business to suggest otherwise. The days of CCI are long gone. The Parliament has mandated us that we should have no view on the pricing of issues. You are free to price your issue at whatever price you consider appropriate. How will you do it? There are, of course, procedures, the way in which the IPO documents are filed, the way that they are given in the public domain, etc. Disclosure. So, simple issue. If a company coming to IPO 3 months ago or 6 months ago has placed its equity with some party, assume a private party naturally, at 100 rupees. And now it wishes to come to the market at 450 rupees. No problem. We have nothing to say in the matter. However, when you disclose, we expect you to disclose to the investor what accounts for the difference between 100 rupees and 450 rupees, what has changed. It may be your internal metrics, it may be external metrics. Please disclose what has changed from the time that you placed equity at 100 to now when you wish to place at 450. Somebody asked me the question, what if nothing has changed? I said, no problem. Please disclose that nothing has changed. As far as we are concerned, I repeat, we are a disclosure-based regime. If the investor sees that yes, 100 rupees to 450 rupees, nothing has changed, he is free or she is free to make her own decision. This is just an illustration as to how we think about what the industry does and what is the role of SEBI in this entire process. The last red one in the same context, if you cross the line, so if that same prospectus fails to mention that there are key management personnel against whom there is litigation and you have failed to disclose it in your document. Now, not only, as I said, will we have a lot to say about it, we will have something to do about it. So, a lot of what our regulations say is really not just, and particularly disclosure, is not just for the protection of the investor, it is for the protection of the entities raising capital as well. Because nobody tomorrow should point a finger at you and say, you did not disclose this, and we were misled into investing in your company, and now there is a problem in the transaction. So the simple premise of saying full disclosure protects both the discloser and the disclosed. Both parties are protected, and this is the spirit in which we believe in the concept of 100% transparency and disclosure. In moving forward, and we have, as we know, all of us as a country, we know that we have a huge agenda ahead of us because there is a huge opportunity. In this journey, we at SEBI clearly understand that we cannot do this on our own, because as I said, the fundamental belief is we are not the people creating value. We are not the people who are doing nation building. It has to be in partnership with all of you. Now, in that partnership, everyone has a role to play. Everyone brings their specific competencies as a team to develop, as I said, that trust, the plan, the success, the vision, the goals, the performance. All of that is a combined effort that we have to do in partnership. Now, this spirit of partnership, how do we try and manifest it? We manifest it through the way in which we think about engaging with the industry. Going forward, you will see in SEBI, and already I think some of you who have been closely associated with us for the last few years, the question of dogma should not dog us. At SEBI, we are committed to surrendering all dogma. We may have regulations which we have in place. Those regulations may have been put in place in a time and in an era when they were right, they were relevant, they were appropriate. In today's context, they may be completely inappropriate and completely anachronistic. We are very happy to not be attached to that dogma and to simply say that going forward for us, what is important is first principles and data. We will be led by data. We invite data for every single policy that SEBI brings out today. The policy is back-tested with data. Every aspect of what we do is contingent upon data. There is not now even a single piece of paper that is moved within SEBI without data to support what is being said or is being articulated. So our commitment to the industry as we go down this path for the next many years is we will eschew dogma, we will embrace data, and we invite you as well to do the same. So for every proposal that you bring to us, and we welcome those proposals, we wish you to start from first principles, support it by data, and it makes our life all the more easy in order to support the industry, in order to build a facilitative environment where we, in partnership, move towards creating more and more wealth for the investor and more wealth for the country. Another form through which we manifest our spirit of partnership is our advisory committees. On a lighter note, I must tell you that in a recent forum where I asked somebody, what can we do to make our consultation process with industry more effective? I was completely surprised and taken aback when back came the answer saying, you are far too democratic. And I'm like, really? I thought being democratic and allowing everybody to very freely participate in the consultation, allowing every perspective to come to the table so that SEBI can listen, absorb, assess, and evaluate was a good thing. But it looks like this particular individual felt that it was too much of a good thing and perhaps to a fault. I must admit, having listened to that feedback, I'm still in the corner where I feel that more consultation is better. And today, most of you in the industry who've been associated with SEBI the past many years would have observed that it's almost like we say, we will not even sneeze without first consulting our advisory committees. We may not always agree with the recommendations of the advisory committees, but what is our thinking? Our thinking is that the world today, and the markets in particular, are so complex and so dynamic that it is not possible for us as human beings, as one set of human beings, to fully appreciate every perspective of of the step we are about to take. And therefore it would be very presumptuous on our part and very arrogant on our part to believe hame sab aata hai. It's not possible. Today's world is so complex. You take a step and then you will realize that there were half a dozen things that you did not even know about, did not even understand, and then you have to roll back because suddenly you've done something inappropriate. So our philosophy is we are not the repositories of all the knowledge. The repository of all knowledge and perspective resides in the market, and therefore we have our advisory committees. Those of you who sit on those advisory committees, you know how much work goes on there and with what seriousness SEBI listens and appreciates what goes on in those committees. So the working assumption is the world is too complex. We would be delusional to assume that we know and understand everything, and therefore we must consult. When that consultation happens and different perspectives come, there are some recommendations that we feel are not appropriate because in respect of that final and ultimate objective of creating trust in the ecosystem, the trade-off between some of the alternatives is the responsibility of the regulator to finally take the call, because there are usually no easy answers. There are no no-brainers. There are always trade-offs to be weighed. On many occasions, I would say on most occasions, 80–90% of the time, SEBI generally agrees with the recommendations of its advisory committees. On the occasional 10–20%, they disagree and say no, that the balance of convenience for the investors rests in the opposite direction, and we take that view. But our commitment is we will not take those decisions without first understanding and appreciating the perspective that is brought to the table. We may reach a conclusion of weighing the trade-offs slightly differently from what you believe, but we will not do it without consultation. And that is our commitment to the industry. There is nothing behind closed doors. We will and continue to be committed to the process of consultation, and our doors are always open to recommendations. The only request is they should be specific and actionable recommendations. We do get a lot of what I would call generic recommendations, which are very hard for us to appreciate because we don't know what exactly is meant or what the ask is. But wherever those are translated into specific recommendations, we are completely open. Our doors are open for ideas. And as I shared with the smaller group we were in just before this meeting started, that in the recent reorg that we have done in SEBI, there is now in every department at least one individual, usually 3 individuals, whose KRAs for the year are very simple. You will implement policy which will be developmental and facilitative in nature, which the industry will celebrate.
तो फिक्की की कैपिटल मार्केट कॉन्फ्रेंस में सेबी की चेयरपर्सन माधवी पुरी बुच काफ़ी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स हाईलाइट करते हुए खासतौर से कैपिटल मार्केट के संदर्भ में कि जो ट्रस्ट है वो सबसे ज़रूरी चीज़ है, बुनियादी चीज़ है। अगर कैपिटल मार्केट में अगर आपको भरोसा बढ़ाना है तो ही कुछ हो सकता है। साथ ही उन्होंने ये भी कहा कि जब तक ट्रस्ट नहीं है तब तक कुछ हो नहीं सकता है। तो डिस्क्लोजर को लेकर, ट्रस्ट को लेकर, नेशन बिल्डिंग में, कैपिटल मार्केट में भरोसा बनाने में उन्होंने कॉरपोरेट्स की जो भूमिका है उसको काफ़ी अच्छे से हाईलाइट किया। और ये भी उन्होंने कहा कि ये जो वक्त है वो भारत के लिए अवसरों से भरा हुआ है और सिस्टम में अगर भरोसा बनाना है तो वहाँ पर काम आता है रेगुलेटर। तो ये बहुत ही अच्छी ये कॉन्फ्रेंस है और वहाँ से बहुत ही बढ़िया चीज़ें वहाँ से निकल के आई है माधवी पुरी की तरफ से। लेकिन